When this millionaire came home at 3 a.m., he found his maid doing something devastating with his kids. The hands of the clock ticked mercilessly as the minutes dragged into the early morning. At 3 a.m., the world outside was still, but inside one luxurious mansion, an unseen storm was brewing. Edward Lawson, the millionaire businessman, pulled into his driveway, exhaustion clinging to him like a thick fog. He had worked late, closing another big deal, but the gleam of his wealth couldn't shake the chill creeping down his spine. The atmosphere was wrong, electric. His instincts screamed at him. As he stepped inside, the door creaked ominously. The house was dark, far too quiet. Faint whispers echoed from the children's playroom. He approached cautiously, heart pounding like a drum. Each step felt heavier, the air thick with tension. Something in those whispers twisted inside his stomach. It wasn't just quiet, it was eerie, as if time paused in respectful horror. He pushed the door open, and what he saw gripped him with icy fingers. His maid, Maria, who had been trusted like family, was there with his kids, a sight that should be innocent. But the shadows danced around them in a grotesque ballet. Her fingers moved in strange patterns, and the kids' eyes were wide, gleaming with something unsettling. Was it fear? Curiosity? Edward's breath hitched. The flickering light barely illuminated the ingredients laid out before them, a strange mixture in a bowl that smelled faintly of something rotten. Was that even food? Maria's voice broke through the hushed anxiety, her tone twisted and low. Just a little longer, kids were almost there. What on earth were they doing? Edward could barely process it. He felt like he'd stumbled into a nightmare. Every muscle in his body tensed. He forced himself to step forward, only to be stopped by the chilling way her head turned to him. The look in her eyes, the intensity, sent a shiver racing up his spine. The playroom felt like a twisted version of the welcoming space it should be. He could feel his heart racing. What were they cooking up? Was it magic? Or something much darker? A lump formed in his throat. This was not what a normal family looks like. He took a step back, and, in that one moment of doubt, uncertainty gripped him like a vice. Could he trust her? What if he had been blind all along? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Edward stood frozen, caught in an unsettling web of disbelief and fear. He wanted to scream, to rush in and snatch his children away from whatever dark ritual this was, but his feet felt like lead. The air crackled with an energy he couldn't comprehend. The kids turned to him, eyes reflecting both innocence and something unnaturally hungry. What was going to happen next? The sense that he was on the brink of a profound revelation seeped into his bones. Would he uncover the truth lurking in the shadows, or would it consume them all? The very walls of the house seemed to loom larger, suffocating him with the weight of secrets. What had he walked into? The air in the playroom was thick, suffocating. Edward's heart raced faster, beating a wild rhythm against his chest as he struggled to comprehend the scene before him. Maria stood dominant, an almost ghostly figure over his children, who were entranced, their faces painted with a bizarre mix of thrill and terror. "Kids," he finally managed to croak, but the sound barely escaped his lips, swallowed by the tension. They remained rooted, gazes locked on Maria. His voice faded into the shadows, a whisper against the chaos. "Don't," he shouted suddenly, feeling a surge of desperation wash over him. He took a deep, shaky breath and stepped forward, resolute. "Get away from the bowl." The kids blinked, as if awakening from a trance. The innocent glint in their eyes quickly phased into confusion. Maria turned, a smirk curling her lips, like she was unraveling a secret meant only for them. "Edward," she purred, her voice sickly sweet, don't be so dramatic. We're just having a little fun. But that laughter dark and twisted made his skin crawl. Fun? There was nothing fun about this. The mixture in the bowl, lumpy and green, bubbled menacingly, emitting a foul odor that clawed at his throat. He knew they had to get out. He felt sickened and angry, betrayed. How could this have happened in his own home? What have you done to them? He demanded, his voice low but fierce, the coldness creeping into it. Step away from my children, Maria. Now. She tilted her head, those eyes glimmering like shards of glass caught in a flickering light. You're misunderstanding the beauty of this moment, this opportunity. They're special, Edward. Just like our little project. Project? The word escaped him like a gasp. Don't you want to know what could lie ahead for them? What they can become? She whispered, advancing a step towards him. The children remained by her side, their faces eerily calm, not a hint of fear in their eyes. A surge of panic hit him, heavy and cold. Get back. I said get away. But the instant he lunged toward them, Maria's laughter sliced through the heavy air. It's too late. We've already begun. His mind raced. What had he uncovered? A reality too dark to fathom loomed before him, a twisted ambition masked by a facade of care. He couldn't bear to look. Was this truly his family? Would he have to fight her, this woman he had trusted to save his own children? With wild determination, Edward turned to run, to find something, anything to protect them from whatever dark influence Maria had woven around them. But at that moment, the lights flickered wildly, plunging the playroom into darkness. A deep chill shot straight up his spine. The children's voices echoed, higher now, chanting words that twisted his insides. Just a little longer, we're almost there. Edward felt as if the walls were closing in. He needed to find light, clarity, a way to untangle the mystery that was suffocating his family. But before he could move, he heard Maria whisper softly, "You can't escape, Edward. You'll soon see the truth." He froze in place, shock coursing through him. What did she mean? Was it a threat or a promise? Darkness swirled about, leaving him with a single fear: if he didn't act fast, he might lose everything. What lay ahead was uncertain, but he knew he was on the brink of a battle, one where the stakes were his children's futures and perhaps even his own soul. And so, as the shadows coiled around him like a serpent ready to strike, Edward whispered a prayer for courage, and in that moment, he understood he had to face whatever lay in wait. The fight for his family's safety was only just beginning. What revelations would he uncover next? Edward's heart pounded in the dark, each beat echoing like a countdown to disaster. The chanting of his children reverberated off the walls, a haunting melody that wrapped around him like a noose. He needed to see them, to break the spell Maria had cast, but the shadows swallowed every ray of light, leaving him stranded in a suffocating void. Think, Edward. Find a way, he muttered to himself, his voice just a breath in the darkness. He couldn't allow fear to overcome him. That he took a cautious step forward, feeling around with trembling hands, searching for anything solid, anything that could guide him back to his family. The chill in the air clung to him, and as he moved, the sound of a sinister laugh rippled through the darkness, drawing closer. It was Maria, her presence chilling and palpable. "Edward," she whispered like a lover's taunt. "Isn't this exhilarating? The unknown. The power. Your children possess so much potential." "Shut up!" he barked, anger fueling him. "You've twisted their minds. I want to let you do this." "Do what?" "Help them awaken." Her voice dripped with malicious delight. "You can't see it, can you? They are blossoming before your eyes." Suddenly, the flickering lights returned, revealing the playroom in grotesque detail. The bowl bubbled ominously at the center, the children's faces eerily serene, almost angelic, yet their eyes danced with something unfathomable. "Kids!" he yelled, desperation clawing his throat. "Look at me. Snap out of it." In unison, their gaze shifted to him, but there was a disconnect, like they were seeing him through a thick fog. They continued to chant, their voices blending into a harmonious drone. Just a little longer, we're almost there. Edward felt a jolt of terror. They weren't just lost, they were entangled in something far beyond him. As he strained to reach them, Maria stood calmly, arms crossed, a puppet master reveling in the chaos. "What are you doing to them?" His eyes locked on the bowl, understanding dawning. "Is that it? What's in there? What have you given them?" Maria smiled, her expression grotesquely pleased. "Just a little gift to help them become what they were always meant to be. Just like you, Edward, hungry for power, craving opportunity. Don't you see? They are destined for greatness. No. Not like this." He took a step back, the reality crashing over him like icy water. "You're using them. Look closer," she said, beckoning with her finger. "What if I told you that children are the future? They just need guidance, and a little boost." Before he could respond, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged within him. He needed to move, needed to comprehend this nightmarish revelation before it swallowed him whole. That he thought he felt a small hand graze his arm, a tiny pulse of warmth in a sea of dread. "Dad? Help us," a faint voice whispered, muddied and confused. "Max, is that you?" A flick of hope unfurled inside him. "Don't believe her, Dad. She's making us do things." The soberness of Max's tone pierced through the darkness. "Max!" Edward cried, straining to hear his son's voice. "I'll get you out. Hold on." He could feel Maria growing more insistent, her laughter merging with the chant, creating a terrible symphony that wrapped around his mind. He took a deep breath, summoning all of his strength as he surged forward through the dark, desperate to reach his children, to tear them away from her grip. "Let them go!" Edward shouted, eyes narrowing in determination. But something seized him, a feeling that the very air around him was shifting, transforming into a force that threatened to hold him still. What other secrets lurked in the shadows? What would Edward discover if he continued deeper into Maria's web? In that moment, he knew the darkness would reveal something shocking, perhaps the key to his children's salvation, or a truth far more terrifying. And as he fought against the weight of despair, a chilling realization struck him. If he didn't make it in time, he might never find his children again. Edward pushed forward through the black abyss, each step a battle against something unseen that clawed at his mind, urging him to give in, to surrender to the shadows. The air thickened with dread, each breath a struggle. "Max! Emma!" he shouted, voice cracking. "You're stronger than this. Fight back." The chanting warped around him, a torturous rhythm that grew louder, resonating against the walls, drowning out his pleas. His heart raced. He thought he could almost make out their faces in his mind, their smiles, their laughter, but those memories felt like fragile glass shattering against the reality of the moment. Then, there was another touch. A soft grip on his wrist, reminiscent of tiny fingers. "Dad, please." It was Emma, her voice shaking, breaking through his haze of panic. "Emma!" Relief surged through him like a lightning bolt. "Where are you?" "I'm coming." But the grip faded, dissolving like mist. We're trapped." Her voice trailed off, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Edward could hear her sob, each sound twisting the knife deeper in his heart. "Damn it!" He pressed on, forcing himself to focus. He couldn't let despair eclipse hope. "I'm here. Stay with me." Another flicker of light surged through the room, illuminating the children momentarily, their faces warped with glassy stares, almost unrecognizable. The chanting surged, frantic, as if they were teetering on the edge of madness. Each word they uttered felt like a dagger to him. Edward fought against the urge to cover his ears, but he needed to hear them to reach them. Suddenly, Maria's laughter erupted, dark and ringing. "You really think you can save them? They're beyond you now, Edward. They've tasted the power, and they want more. Shut up. You don't own them. The anger coursing through him ignited a fire he didn't know he had left. Do you truly believe that, darling? Or are you just afraid? The shadows shifted, and her form flickered before him like a candle in the wind. Stop! Edward yelled, lunging forward, pushing through the swirling darkness. The sound of her laughter transformed into distorted whispers, surrounding him, pummeling against his mind. He had to find the bowl, the source of this madness. It loomed heavy in the back of his thoughts. He took another step and stumbled, the surface beneath him slick and cold. Frantically feeling around, a shock of warm liquid splattered across his hand. A powerful smell pierced his senses. The bubbling noise grew louder as he pushed through the darkness, a determination rising in his chest. Max. Emma. I see you. His heart raced as their figures flickered into view. He reached out, pushing through the clammy air until his fingertips made contact with fabric. And then, a wave of despair crashed over him. Their eyes were blank, entranced, their chants a twisted harmony. Help us please. They barely looked at him, their expressions hauntingly vacant. Why? Edward cried out, desperation curling in his stomach. Why are you doing this to them? Because, Maria's voice slithered into his ear, they are reaching their true potential. Power has a taste and they're hungry for it. The room pulsed with energy, the walls seeming to breathe. Edward felt the shadows surrounding him growing thicker, a heavy blanket pulling him into oblivion. In that moment, a memory sparked a vision of his children playing, laughing, free. He pictured them strong, resilient. You're my kids. You belong to me, not this darkness. As he screamed, a crack formed in the darkness. A ray of light burst through, stretching into the void, pushing back against the tendrils closing around him. The bowl bubbled violently, and the sounds morphed into chaos, unleashing a cacophony of grief and confusion. Edward narrowed his eyes, summoning every ounce of courage. Together, we can break this. Hold on. I love you. But as the shadows clawed at him, a chilling thought slithered into his mind: if he couldn't reach them, if they remained lost to this madness, he might never see the beautiful kids they once were again. The light expanded. Would it be enough to save them? Or was he too late? The shadows writhed, desperate to swallow him whole. Edward fought back with everything inside him, every heartbeat becoming more frantic as the light flickered like a dying star. Don't let go. Not now, he shouted, each word a desperate prayer. The boundaries between hope and despair blurred. It felt like he was suspended in time. The chanting twisted into a horrifying song, a melody of loss and betrayal that swirled around him, tightening every breath. But he willed his feet forward, each step buoyed by the echo of Emma's trembling voice. Please, Dad. She cried again, that fragile sound swirling in the air, digging deeper into his soul. With a sudden resolve, he surged forward, focusing on her voice, anchoring himself to it. I'm coming, he whispered as he pointed his free hand toward the glowing crack of light that seemed so far yet so close. It beckoned him, promising freedom from the grip of this horrid nightmare. Emma. Max. Keep fighting. He felt desperation claw at him as he pushed through the last stretch. He was almost there. Just a little further, just one more step. The shadows seethed defiantly, burrowing into his thoughts like maggots. Images flashed before his eyes: Max's toothy grin as he raced across the soccer field, Emma's laughter ringing out as she twirled in her favorite dress. Those memories pulsed with warmth, igniting a fire that clashed against the cold dread engulfing him. Just as he closed in on the light, the chanting crescendoed into a shriek of despair. A wave of darkness surged toward him, hungry and insatiable. The air grew heavy, clinging to him as if trying to pull him back. No. You won't take them. He roared, channeling every ounce of energy into his voice. Suddenly, he slammed against an invisible barrier, jolting him back. The children's faces flashed briefly in the brightness, their eyes pleading for him. Help us. Dad. Their voices clashed against each other like a deadly chorus that he threw his body against the wall of shadows in a last-ditch effort, feeling the pulse of despair radiating from the bowl at the center of the nightmare. You want my kids? You'll have to fight me first. As he dug deep, his pulse quickening, he felt the light flicker at his fingertips. With a scream that tore from the depths of his soul, he thrust his hand forward, reaching for the bowl. It surged with powerful energy, pulling at his very essence, but he didn't relent. He wouldn't let Maria's twisted ambitions claim them. With one final push, he thrust through the barrier, his fingers grazing the bowl. An electric shock surged through him, lacing his arm with a fierce warmth. In that moment, the chanting stopped, falling into an eerie silence, but just as triumph flickered into view, a chilling whisper wrapped around his heart. You've made a grave mistake, Edward. Maria's voice curled around him, seductive yet deadly, erasing the glimmer of hope. Edward's heart sank as shadows thickened, swirling violently, smashing against him like waves crashing against cliffs. Your kids wanted the power. They crave it, she continued, her sinister laughter invading his mind. You think you can save them? You'll wish you hadn't tried. He felt the cold seep deeper, and doubt began to creep in. They were slipping further away, his hold on their essence fraying like a worn thread, the shadows twisted, ready to reclaim what was once lost. Max. Emma. He bellowed into the oppressive silence, but the echo of their names felt hollow, despair clawed and gnawed at his resolve. Time seemed to stretch and warp, each second preparing to deliver an unbearable truth. Just as panic set in, a blinding pulse erupted from the bowl, erupting through the abyss, illuminating the forgotten corners of the darkness, but was that light enough to save them? Would it turn the tide, or was this just the prelude to the ultimate fall? The moment hung in the air, taut with the possibility of hope or devastation. Edward's heart raced as he tried, desperately, to hold on. The shadows recoiled in protest, and he knew he was about to confront the very depths of despair. What lay beyond the light as it grew? What darkness lurked, ready to swallow them whole? The light pulsed, a fierce glow cutting through the malevolence that had wrapped around Edward. He felt its warmth flush through him, igniting his limbs. But as soon as he let his hope rise, the shadows responded, lashing out with a fury that caught him off guard. They wrapped around his ankles, dragging him back toward the abyss. Fight it, Edward. Don't give in. He shouted to himself, as if words alone could sever the suffocating shackles. Each breath was a struggle, the air thick with dread and darkness. Memories erupted in his mind like glass shards. Emma's sweet smile, the sound of Max's laughter echoing in the backyard, the moments they were simply a family. He desperately wrestled against the shadows, their whispers growing louder in his ears. Join us, surrender, they want to be with us. The seduction of those words twisted deeper, twisting joy into temptation. Edward shook his head violently, trying to clear the fog that clouded his mind. No. He screamed, the sound reverberating, resonating across the chasm that separated him from his children. This was no ordinary fight. It was a battle for their very souls. I want to let you take them. Relying on sheer will, he forced his feet to move forward, each step an act of defiance against the malevolent force threatening to consume them, but as he stood there, the shadows drew close, swirling in a frenzied dance. Do you think you can save them? Maria's voice sliced through the chaos, dripped with malice. You're the one who's lost, Edward. This power, it calls to them. A slender tendril of darkness whipped forth, wrapping around his wrist. Edward grunted in pain, staggering forward, pulling against its grip. You don't know my kids. He shouted back, the truth igniting within him. They're stronger than you think. With one final stance, he raised his free hand toward the pulsing light, feeling a surge of energy course through him. I choose love. He yelled, each word exploding with defiance. The ground trembled beneath him. The shadows writhed and recoiled as if stung, but he knew he couldn't back down. The light flared brilliantly, illuminating the cavernous void and casting shadows into retreat. It was now or never. Images swirled again, frantically clawing at his consciousness. Max daring to take the winning shot in a game, Emma's fierce determination as she tackled a challenge. They had fought together through every battle, every scrape, and every failure. The essence of their shared strength soared through him. Together. He bellowed into the darkness, channeling his thoughts, his love into a force stronger than despair. The shadows recoiled, their eerie whispers dwindling as the light danced in a wild frenzy. And then, silence, but the quiet was short-lived. A loud cracking noise reverberated through the air, and suddenly the light burst forth, fracturing the darkness like glass shattering underfoot. Edward shielded his eyes against the radiant brilliance as shadows screamed and writhed, desperate to flee. Then he saw them, familiar outlines emerging from the chaos. "Dad!" Emma's voice rang out, filled with a mix of relief and fear. Max stood beside her, his eyes wide, pleading. They were here. They were safe, but before Edward could reach them, a blinding flash erupted from the bowl at the center of the nightmare, and Maria's laughter echoed once more. "You think this is over? The true trial begins now." Edward's heart sunk as the light pulsed and flickered, revealing more horrors lurking beyond the immediate darkness. Shadows stretched towards them, a tide ready to swallow them all. Fear clutched at his gut as a chilling realization settled in. What if they were only at the edge of the abyss, and every ounce of strength he had wasn't enough? "Get back! Now!" he shouted, pushing himself toward them, ready to fight against the unthinkable. But in that moment of desperation, the light dimmed, and a new wave of terror flooded in. What awaited him in this chaotic void? Would the bond of love be enough to shield them from Maria's dark intentions? As darkness clutched more tightly, Edward braced himself. The battle was far from over, and time was running out. Would he find the strength to protect his children, or would they be lost in the shadows forever? The shadows pulsed and throbbed like a living entity, swirling around Edward and his children in a chaotic tempest. Every moment felt suspended, the air heavy with uncertainty. Edward could see Emma and Max, but the darkness twisted between them like tendrils of smoke, threatening to pull them apart. "Stay close!" Edward called out, panic threading through his voice. He squeezed Emma's hand tightly, trying to ground them both against the tidal wave of despair. "We need to stand together." Emma's eyes were wide, flickering between fear and hope. "What do we do, Dad? What if it doesn't work? What if she comes for us, again? Then we fight, just like we always have." Edward replied, forcing a reassuring smile onto his lips despite the chaos around them. A tremor of confidence surged through him, ignited by their unity. Each whisper of the shadows seemed to fade whenever his heart shouted for love, but as they huddled together, the shadows loomed closer, contorting grotesquely. Edward could feel their cold breath curling around his legs, searching for weakness. He drew a deep breath, centering himself. It was time to face the root of this nightmare. Suddenly, Maria's voice slithered through the darkness, chilling and mocking. "You think you can defeat me?" The shadows erupted into a cacophony of laughter, their sinister tones ringing in Edward's ears. "You're out of your depth, Edward. They belong with me." "No!" Edward shouted, raw fury bolting through him. He had to break this spell. With a surge of energy, he stepped forward, pulling Emma and Max with him, as he channeled every ounce of love, every moment spent as a family, into a fierce projectile. He envisioned their days playing, laughing, comforting one another through life's trials. The shadows recoiled at his words, screeching as if struck. "Your love is a weakness." Maria countered, but he could hear the falter in her voice. "They could push back, they could fight. Love is our strength." Edward shouted back, feeling the warmth of that truth flood through him, igniting a blaze not only in his heart but in Emma's and Max's as well. The light pulsed vibrantly around them, the shadows growing less dense, flickering with uncertainty. "Together!" Max exclaimed, his voice brightening amidst the darkness. They held their hands together, forming a circle of light, pulsating like a heartbeat. Edward saw Emma squeeze her brother's hand, her gaze fierce and unwavering. It filled him with hope. The shadows shrieked again, thrashing wildly, the malicious whispers too afraid to approach them, but just as victory felt close enough to grasp, the ground beneath them trembled violently, fracturing and echoing with Maria's laughter. It was both haunting and triumphant. "You think this power will save you? You have no idea what I've unleashed." Edward's heart raced as the ground split open, revealing a deep chasm where shadows boiled like a cauldron. Pieces of darkness spilled forth like ink, rushing towards them with a hunger. "Hold on!" Edward screamed, feeling the chasms of terror threatening to separate them. He tightened his grip around his children, chasing away the fears that threatened to consume them. The shadows swirled in a violent frenzy, shifting and contorting, and within that cacophony, dark shapes began to emerge, figures morphing into familiar faces, tauntingly familiar but distorted. "Look, Dad! Is that Mom?" Emma gasped, shock splintering through her voice. Edward's heart sank. "No, stay with me, don't look at them," he urged, dread clawing at him. Those victims of darkness radiated despair, whispering secrets stolen from their past. He forced himself to focus past the horror. How to silence those echoes? How to turn back the tide? The moment hung precariously. "Use your love," he shouted, feeling the last reserves of his strength dwindling. "Remember what we are." But the shadows surged forward, dragging them into the gaping maw of despair. Had they really come this far, only to be consumed? Edward felt the weight of fear pressing down. Would they end up lost forever, prisoners of a darkness that feasted on memories? As the shadows threatened to engulf the light, an unsettling silence fell. And with it, the terrifying question loomed: what if, in the end, love alone wasn't enough? A pulse of energy coursed through Edward, a desperate insistence that fought against the encroaching shadows. He gripped his children tighter, their bodies huddled together, hearts racing in unison. "Stay strong. We can't let her manipulate our love," he cried. The echoes of laughter from the figures swayed like a dark symphony, each note preying on their deepest fears. He could see Maria among the faces, a reflection distorted by the malevolence of the shadows. She twisted and laughed, whipping the shadows around her like a protective cloak. "Remember," he urged, his voice steady against the chaos. "Our love is a shield. It's stronger than any darkness." Max's eyes shone with determination. "Let us show her, Dad. She can't take us away." "Exactly." Edward nodded, a rush of adrenaline fueling his resolve. "Hold on to me. Let us push back." The ground continued to tremor, the chasm widening as shadowy arms clawed at the edges, trying to pull them into the abyss. Edward closed his eyes for a brief moment, summoning every joyful memory that connected them. Birthday parties, silly jokes, camping in the backyard. Each thought lit a fire inside, burning brightly amidst the dreadful shadows. "Together now!" he shouted, desperation spilling from his heart. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. In that moment, golden light erupted from their circle, casting away the shadows momentarily. A brilliant beam shot out, piercing the darkness and illuminating Maria's twisted face. Her laughter broke a shriek of anger mixed with fear as the shadows recoiled from the pure light. "No! This isn't over!" she screamed, her voice melding with the shrill cries of the shadows, growing louder as they fought to resist the surge. With every heartbeat, their light expanded, pushing against the dark waves. Edward could feel the shadows pull, the cold fingers wrapping ferociously around them once again. But the light, born from their love, began to forge pathways through the shadowy haze, illuminating faces once lost, voices long unheard. "Mom!" Emma cried, reaching out. But Edward closed his eyes tight. "Don't give in, Emma. We are not letting her take you down with lies." Edward forced the words through clenched teeth, beating back the memories that threatened to drown them. As they fought, figures emerged from the depths of the shadows, each one a soul caught in despair. Edward could barely recognize their faces, each marked by pain, each hauntingly familiar. "Join us!" they cried, voices layered and distorted. "You will never escape." Edward's heart sank further. "This is not who we are," he shouted defiantly. His fists clenched, fueled by the love for his children. "No. We won't give up." The shadows twisted, writhing around, threatening to close in on them once more. Just as they felt themselves slipping, Edward grasped the glimmers of hope amidst his memories. "Let us remind them," he yelled, summoning every ounce of joy within him. "We choose love over fear. And love suffocates despair." Suddenly, the light surged again, a tidal wave of warmth sweeping through the shadowy forms. He could feel their resistance falter, cracks beginning to splinter through the encroaching darkness. Edward opened his eyes, and with his family, they surged forth, feeling the freedom of light being restored. Then came the whispers, haunting, echoing through the metallic clang of the shadows. "You think this is the end?" Maria's threat lingered, a promise of return cloaked in the shadows. Just when it felt like they had broken free, the shadows suddenly reformed, the abyss roaring with anger. Edward felt the ground beneath them trembling violently. "Look out!" Emma shouted. The chasm opened wide, but it wasn't just a void this time. No, it bore an eye, dark, glimmering, watching them intently, full of malice and intent. "What is that?" Max trembled, pulling closer to his father. Before Edward could answer, a sharp pain coursed through the air, pinching at his chest. Then silence. The shadows quivered, a moment of hesitation in their desperate pursuit. And before them, a single shadowy figure evolved from the darkened mass, emerging with a flash of light. It paused, surveying the three of them, eyes filled with untold promises and pain. "Join me," it beckoned, voice smooth like silk, and yet, filled with coldness that sent chills down Edward's spine. "Do you dare challenge your fate? Or will you embrace what is truly yours?" His breath caught in his throat. What does that even mean? And why did it feel like their greatest test was just beginning? Edward's heart raced as the shadowy figure hovered before them, its presence suffocating. The children's wide eyes reflected the echoes of fear bouncing off the cavern walls around them. Emma clutched Max's hand, and he tightened his grip, a mix of terror and resolve etched on his young face. "Did you hear that?" Edward's voice trembled, his gaze anchored on the figure. "Join you? We'll never kneel to darkness." The figure leaned closer, its features blinking in and out of focus, a cruel smile that didn't reach its eyes. "But your choices have brought you here. Truly, did you think your love could withstand the void? Love has its limits." "No!" Edward shouted. The walls quaked in response, echoing the defiance in his heart. "Love can conquer anything. You're just a twisted reflection of fear." "Fear?" The figure laughed, a haunting sound that vibrated in the marrow of his bones. "Let me show you the truth." With a sudden cry, the figure stretched out an arm. The shadows thickened, swirling around Edward and his children, engulfing them in a suffocating embrace. Edward felt their warmth recede as he was thrust backward into a suffocating darkness. "Dad!" Max called, his voice a thin thread of panic. "Hold on. Hold on!" Edward screamed, fighting against the pull. But the shadows were relentless, memories clawing at the edges of his mind. Faces of friends, loved ones, slipping away into the dark. Maria's laughter rang deep, echoing through his thoughts, their beautiful past twisted into torment. "No. This can't be real." Emma sobbed, and the sound tugged at the very fabric of his heart. Suddenly, images bombarded Edward, a flood of nostalgia filled with love and joy, then ripped apart by guilt and pain. The smiling faces of their family vacations morphed into grotesque masks wearing agony. Each laugh became a scream, fraying his resolve. "Wake up, Edward!" The figure urged, its voice woven with temptation. This is who you are, a broken spirit desperately clinging to empty memories. Edward shook his head, forcing himself to focus. You're wrong. He shouted, using every ounce of his strength to shift the darkness. Those memories are not empty. They are the foundation of our strength. Very well, the figure purred, its voice lowering to a whisper that threaded through the chaos. Then let us dig deeper into the shadows of your past. The shadows thickened. Before Edward could react, fragments of his past suddenly surged up, a tapestry of regrets unfurling through the dark. Stray moments he remembered the argument with Maria over misplaced trust, the sad looks when he'd driven her away. Each clash of words morphed into howling echoes, rising louder, threatening to drown out his thoughts. Look closer. The figure taunted, its voice dripping with sinister delight. See how the cracks in your love run deep. Stop. Edward roared, forcing the memories back, thrusting out the shadows like a warrior fighting against a powerful tide. He felt Emma and Max at his side, their presence grounding him. Our love is not broken. Our family isn't shrouded in despair. With a defiant scream, he summoned every piece of love that still flickered within him. The golden light burst forth, briefly illuminating the shadows and unraveling the bitterness cloaked within them. Love endures. We choose love. We always will. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned by their sheer will. A wave of warmth surged as their voices harmonized in a chant of defiance. But the figure remained unfazed, its eyes narrowing with wicked delight. You choose love. Then let us test that. Let us see how far it stretches, if it can stand against the true shadows waiting in the depths. Edward's heart sank. What did it mean? What lay ahead? As the darkness roared back, threatening to collapse in, he felt it a chilling certainty that greater challenges awaited. He had awakened something darker, deeper, and it hungered for them. Get ready. Edward shouted through gritted teeth. A new sense of urgency pressed upon them. We're just getting started. What deeper shadows were lying in wait, and could love truly withstand the torment bound to come? Edward felt the weight of the darkness pressing down on him, almost suffocating. His heart raced as he looked at his children, their innocent faces battling a storm inside, fear mixed with the growing confusion that twisted their features. But in that moment, he knew he had to anchor them. Stay together. He urged, his voice raw with urgency. No matter what happens, we'll face this together. He could see the shadows swirling, threatening to consume them. Maria's laughter echoed around them, a mocking melody that wrapped itself around the heart of his family. You think you can hold on to love in the face of despair? Let us see how long that lasts. No. You don't control us. Edward shouted defiantly, shaking off the tendrils of doubt creeping into his mind. He reached for Max and Emma, their warmth and strength soothing his fears. Suddenly, the darkness thickened, morphing into grotesque figures from his past, people who had once been dear to him, now twisted in pain. It felt like a hellish gallery of his regrets, reminding him of moments he'd wished he'd acted differently. The memories clawed at him, dredging up feelings of guilt and shame. Look at what you've lost. The shadow figure hissed, its voice smooth like oil, seeping into his consciousness. You abandoned them, Edward. You drove them away with your neglect. No. Edward cried, they're still with me. I wasn't perfect, but my love is more than enough. As he screamed this defiance, a flicker of light erupted deep in his chest, igniting with the fierce recollections of laughter, joy, and family nights filled with stories. Images of happier times flooded his mind, his children playing, smiles radiating hope, and the love they shared birthed a resolute brightness that began to pierce the darkness. Come on. Edward grasped his kids tighter. Remember the love. It's stronger than anything. With a sudden surge, the light rippled through the shadows, illuminating the twisted faces and causing them to recoil. Edward felt buoyed by this burst of warmth, a force of unity that thrummed through his hand, through Emma and Max together. Emma shouted, her voice ringing out strong, breaking the chains of despair. We won't let them win. Together. Echoed Max, his voice joining in harmony with his sister. Together. Edward roared, and in that moment, he felt them all connect heart, mind, and soul. Their love intertwined like roots of an ancient tree grounding them against the storm. As light swelled around them, the figures of darkness shrieked in high-pitched agony, their faces distorting before fading back into nothingness. Edward's heart raced, the fear melting away as courage surged, the shadows grew frantic, wavering in the presence of their united love. This isn't the end. Maria's voice screamed through the chaos, simmering with rage. You'll never escape what you've become. We're not afraid. Edward countered, pushing back even more, lighting candles in the darkness that lay ahead. And we won't ever be afraid. The shadows surged once more, but the trio, bound by the tether of love, pressed forth from their center, a radiant barrier blazing against encroaching darkness. Just then, another wave hit them, strong and tempestuous. New figures swarmed back into view, each one a ghost from the past, beckoning with desperate eyes. Join us. You belong with us. They seemed to reach out, pulling at Edward's essence, whispering sweet lies designed to ensnare him in despair. No. I won't listen. He shouted, pushing through the tide with renewed vigor, focusing on the unyielding light of his family's presence. He turned to Max and Emma, their faces determined. Don't listen to them. We are stronger than all of this. With one giant push, the familial bond exploded into blinding brilliance, radiating outward like a sun rising on a dark world. The figures recoiled, unable to withstand the warmth that flowed from their unity. The darkness cracked, and in that fracturing moment, Edward knew they were reclaiming what had been lost. What is this? Maria screeched, her voice faltering, fear mixing with fury. You think you can resist? Yes. Edward shouted, tears streaming down his cheeks as hope flooded into his heart. Our love is a fortress against your lies. The light expanded beyond them, obliterating the veil of shadows, leaving nothing but warmth and a sense of safety wrapped around them. Breathless, he felt a sudden stillness as the shadows retreated deep into the void, their forms dissipating into whispers that faded away. And then silence. Just sweet silence, beautiful and serene. Max and Emma stood close, eyes wide in disbelief. Did we win? Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Edward knelt before them, his heart swelling with pride, love pouring out of him as he pulled them close. We fought together. Our love conquered the darkness. As they embraced, a gentle warmth surrounded them, light pulsing in the space that was once filled with shadows. Edward knew that though the battle had been hard fought, it was their unity that strengthened and solidified everything they had. And there, in that moment, surrounded by the pure, unbreakable connection of family, Edward could find peace. Let this be our reminder, he said softly as they sat together on the floor, the remnants of the shadows fading from memory. We are stronger together, and nothing can ever take that away from us. As they huddled, everything around them felt right again. They existed in love, free from darkness, and as dawn broke outside the windows, the sun streamed into the room, bathing them in warmth and light. Never again would they take that love for granted. This was their transformation. They had faced the darkness, and together, they had come out stronger. Now, it's time for you to embrace your story, just like Edward and his children did. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm the love. Don't keep your thoughts to yourself. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this shocking ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is everything.